Let's talk about the Kamala Harris ground game, because this is very interesting. Like, what happened? What happened to the vaunted ground game? My team pulled this great soundbite of Wajahat Ali, leftist commentator on CNN and other channels. This is the same guy, the audience knows the clip by now, who's in the Don Lemon clip with Rick Wilson, like, the Republicans, making fun of the way they talk, like as if the Republicans would be sitting there going, those Democrats with their maps and like their books. That was them. So for the audience, that's who you're about to hear, a guy who looks at the right half of the country that way. And here he was. What show was he on, Steve? Was it Piers Morgan? Yeah, he was on Piers. Watch. This before on election day.
The rage of women is going to be felt tomorrow, Piers. I've been saying it on your show for a year. I believe, I'm going to say it in front of the camera. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to come back on your show. You give me crow, make sure it's halal, put some salsa in it, and I'll eat it. There you go.
You'll be getting full
Kamala Harris
crow.
is going to win. The X factor is going to be women, independents, Republicans voting against Trump, and people of color.
I can't wait to see the follow-up episode. So what do you say to him, Ashley? How did he get it so wrong?
Oh, he was so wrong. The righteous rage of women came from women who voted against Kamala Harris because, like I said in the beginning, you can't ask what is a woman and literally put women in the most unsafe positions over the course of your entire administration and then think they're going to show up and support you. In fact, women were so upset, and many women, I think like you, Megyn, and myself, we're voting for our kids. We're voting for their future. And just voting against the complete lunacy of the garbage that they're trying to put in our schools, that they're trying to indoctrinate our children with, it's disgusting. And so it's absolutely hilarious that this is how out of touch the elites are versus the real American people. They have no clue what's going on. We heard for months throughout the summer into the fall that she had a ground game. It was going to be this amazing ground game. I was getting reports. So our canvassers were paid door knockers. That was their job, was to go knock door to door. I get reports every day and every week. And when I read those reports, we weren't seeing them on the ground until after Labor Day in some places. Like in Michigan, they sent 2 guys to Dearborn and they were there for maybe a week and left. We just didn't see them. Maybe they were there and we were in different routes or different streets, but their ground game did not exist. So I don't know what their feedback loop was.
The other issue that we read was helpful to you. I mean, obviously economy and immigration. And then we talked about the trans thing, was the stolen valor allegations against Tim Walz.
Yeah. We saw veterans show up very early, very quickly. We did canvass and did text messaging to veterans, but usually in these types of races and presidential races, the VP is somewhat irrelevant. But Tim Walz was the goofiest choice. I still don't understand how I think she got stuck with him because Shapiro and Kelly didn't want to hitch their wagon to her, to be quite honest. But Tim Walz was so goofy and he lied. And the media, CNN especially, gaslit the American people again about his service, made people feel bad for questioning his title, his rank. He did not earn that rank. He was supposed to finish his school, yet he continued to use it and used it throughout the campaign. That's insulting. He also said he was deployed. I'm a Marine wife. That man was never deployed into combat. And the clips of him trying to load a shotgun was hysterical. He doesn't even know how to unload his gun. And then you have JD Vance, who actually has served his country, who is, a great Catholic man who's served honorably. And you have such a strong contrast between the two of them. That was a slam dunk for us.
It's amazing, especially in a day and age when we're lamenting how woke the military is. To have this guy touting his own military service, which he falsified in large part. He served, but his title he falsified, and whether and where he served became an issue as well. And super woke, right? I mean, as woke as they come. Yeah. Transing kids in Minnesota who don't even live there, who seizing custody from parents who actually live out of state, not to mention tampon Tim in the bathrooms. I'm sure those military members who are sick of this woke military understood exactly what they'd be getting if they had 4 more years of a Democrat administration, including the likes of Tim Walz in it. So that's very interesting too. Can we spend a minute on the Iowa poll? And we're back on like the lies being put out. We talked about how women, they're surging in Pennsylvania. That Iowa poll had a lot of Republicans rattled. It was concerning. It was like, red state Iowa, she's up 3. Holy smokes. When you saw that, what did you think?
We knew something was wrong, so we immediately started looking at it. The early vote, there was like a 9-point advantage for conservatives. Our voter registration gap was massive. It was very much, I think, a tactic to maybe distract conservatives or try to distract conservatives from what was actually happening. And what was happening was she was just getting absolutely creamed in Iowa. That poll also does not have any transparency. You couldn't really see any of the crosstabs, but just based on the early vote and the voter registration, President Trump had a massive advantage in Iowa. There was no question whatsoever. So, and it was proved. It was proven true on Election Day.
When you watched these polls, which all along said it's tight, 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 tight. And of course, look, I mean, President Trump, it'll wind up being maybe a 1-2 point victory in the popular vote. So you can make the argument it's tight, but he won all 7 of the swing states, all 7 of them. What were you thinking? Did you believe the polls that it was tight and you said, let's double down, let's triple down? Or were you like, it's not going to be tight. We'll double and triple down anyway, just to be safe. But what were you thinking beforehand?
Well, no matter what the poll said, we always ran like we were 30 points behind. And we always tried to maximize every dollar that our investors gave us. And we wanted to make sure that we had the highest return on our investment. So working with our pathway partners was critical, making sure that we had data and we were making every decision using data and metrics. That was critical for us. But also when we were looking at the numbers, we knew we had to bank votes. So going into Election Day, we knew that we had banked over 604,000 votes for President Trump, that he didn't, and the left was behind like 1 million votes compared to 2020. So we knew going into Election Day, we had done our job. We had widened the gap. We were very confident. And our team jokes around. We say, it's just math. It's just math. It's just a math problem. So if you can figure out the math problem, then you can win.
Wow. That must have been very comforting because those of us who are on the outside just relying on these pollsters, very frustrating because you just had I think most of us had a feel. You just look around, it's like so many more lawn signs for Trump than we'd ever seen before. So many MAGA hats everywhere. So many people being open about their support for Trump. The huge rallies, which the left continued to tell us were not huge. It's like we can see that they're huge. For a presidential candidate, they're huge. And then they say, oh, look at Kamala Harris. The only time she got the big crowds is when Beyonce was there or some performer, which is why they got paid millions of dollars. So she could boost her. It was like, but it's all anecdotal. You can't go by that. The pollsters across the board, we're saying it's tight. So it's just one of those things. Okay, was there anything in the Democrat vaunted ground game of old, like the Barack Obama one, that you took lessons from?
Data, technology, and their mantra was always vote blue no matter who. So they really focused on policies. In this particular case, we knew we needed to up our game on data. So the Democrats are very good about sharing information. And that is where I think sometimes conservatives aren't as strong. So for us, we created our AFW data command is what we call it. And we had data shares with different organizations, including the Trump campaign. And so because of the FEC opinion, which said that we could legally work with, federal campaigns. So we legally worked with the NRSC, the President's Campaign, the RNC, and some of the Senate races. That was a game changer for us because we were able to build universes based off of our data share agreement. And then we could also share that with other 501c4 organizations so that they could be successful. Because the more successful they are, the more successful the whole movement is.
Like
so
the
that
Charlie
was really
Kirk
our
group,
goal.
like the Elon group, for example. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. And I mean, Hunter Nation, they specifically target Second Amendment, Moms for America, Moms for Liberty, targeting moms. Faith and Freedom Coalition. Tea Party Patriot Action. There's so many. We ended up with almost 100 organizations by the end of it that we were working with to be really intentional. The other thing that I think was a complete game changer was having Laura Trump and Michael Whatley as the head of the RNC on election integrity. We would have an issue pop up and it would be resolved literally in minutes. It was completely different from what I experienced in 2020. That was a true game changer.
Elaborate?
Yeah. So if we saw an issue pop up in Wisconsin, or if we saw there was an issue with some of the ballots in Pennsylvania, for example, there was a couple people who said that a deceased spouse had received a ballot. They were able to take issue on that like right away. They jumped into action, investigated it. The Bucks County. So we started working in Bucks County in 2023, and the chair there is amazing, the Republican Party chairwoman. But in Bucks County, we had so many people showing up for early votes. The lines were super long, and they had like one person working in one of the locations. The party was able to file a lawsuit to extend the vote deadline to Friday at 5 p.m. And that was extremely helpful.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have happened in 2020. And it gave us extra time to, again, those relationships with those text messages, have conversations saying, hey, just so you know, there's a 2-hour wait, but it's going to be open again tomorrow at 9 a.m. if you want to come back. And that's really because there was such a quick, rapid response on any sort of election integrity issue.
I have to say, it's like Lara Trump took a lot of crap when she got elevated to that position by people who were like, what are her qualifications to help run the RNC? And I remember at first saying, I don't totally understand the choice, but I'm open-minded. And I went and contacted some of the people I know who have been high up in that organization. And they were like, you know what? This actually does make sense because the partnership makes sense. He can be responsible for some of the more of the traditional organizational things. And she can be somebody who people will really respond to when it comes to fundraising and outreach and messaging, as she already had been for Trump. And people said, oh, it's going to be too pro-Trump. It's like, well, we need pro-Trump. We need somebody who's going to help on the mission of getting this guy elected.
That was actually a really smart decision. And I think a lot of people forget that there was so much distrust in the RNC from a lot of the base because of all of the problems that happened in 2020 and 2022. And people didn't want to work with the RNC. And one of the things in my conversations with James Blair or Brian Swenson, they understood that, and having Lara, who was part of the Trump family, helped bridge that gap. I had the privilege of working with Lara on the 2020 campaign. She is the most dynamic, hardworking, high energy person. When you meet her, you love her. And I thought she was the perfect person, like I said, just to bridge that gap and kind of restore trust in that institution that people were just really doubting. And so having them, having the smarts of Michael Whatley, who North Carolina has run seamlessly for so long, and he knows that operations mechanical side of it, and also pull in a Trump, that was really, I think, the secret sauce that made the election integrity world move so much more smooth than in the past.
No, I mean, she was roundly criticized for thinking she could do that job. And I haven't heard a lot of apologies to her by her detractors now that she's helped deliver total victory. I mean, it's very impressive. Let's talk about the numbers, because there's something interesting in the numbers. They're still counting, of course. I don't know when we're ever going to have the final count, thanks to our friends in California. But it looks like Trump will get just above the 74 million votes that he got in 2020. And that Kamala Harris will be around 10 million votes behind what Joe Biden received. I mean, think about that. My God, they just didn't want her. It was a wholesale rejection. So is this election more about Republicans getting to the polls, or is it more about Democrats saying, I can't do it. I will not pull the lever for that woman?
I think there's a combination of both, to be honest. The demographics have changed, in a lot of ways, with the increase of young women, youth vote, Hispanic vote, Black vote. There's such a massive shift. I think there may be some people, and we won't know until we see the final numbers, but I think that there are some people who were undecided that may have been more left-leaning, because those independent voters, remember, and I think only time will tell on some of those pieces once we get the data back on who stayed home and who actually turned out on Election Day.
For those of us holding our breath for the past several months, we can finally exhale. The sky seems a little bluer, doesn't it? Work can finally be done on the major issues this country's facing, one of the most significant being our national debt. The fact is, our nation's broke, and that debt is a house of cards that cannot be quickly dismantled. So the strategy remains the same. You might want to diversify your savings. This is why I want to tell you about Birch Gold. So many things are out of our control, out of our president's control for that matter. So it can be important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group can help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. And the best news is it does not cost you 1 cent out of pocket. Just text MK to 989898 to get your free info kit. Plus, right now through Black Friday, you're going to receive a free 1-ounce silver eagle coin for every $5,000 purchased. Protect your savings with Birch Gold. Text MK to 989898 and claim your eligibility for free silver today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.